Hi guys, Jamie here from JB Motion. In today's video, we're going to be making this product advertisement, you could call it, 3D animation type thing. So we're going to be covering it from the very beginning. So that's going to be tracking the camera in After Effects, setting up all the animation in Cinema 4D, rendering it out in Redshift, and then finally adding in the finishing touches, so that little title screen at the end as well. So a lot to be covered in this tutorial, so let's get started on this. Here we go. Okay guys, so we're starting this off in After Effects. We're gonna bring in our video. You guys can download this from the description below. Let's drag it over here. And we're gonna check the frame rate on this. So select it, hit Ctrl-Alt-G in your keyboard, and you can see that this is an awkward frame rate. Cinema 4D won't allow us to set this decimal value, so we need to round this off to the nearest and click OK. Now we can drag this down, and this is what we're working with. So we only need up to about here, really, something like that. About here, we'll say, about 23 seconds of footage. We don't need the entire clip, so hit N on your keyboard to set the work area end, and then Shift Control X will trim the comp to the work area. So here we can make sure that you're actually on 00 as a start time as well. You can check your start time code here as well if you hit Shift Control and K, or no, Control K. On your keyboard. Cool, so let's track the camera now. Go to animation and track camera. So this shouldn't take too long, so we'll pop back in once it's done. Okay, so that is finished. So we can have a look now and we can start setting up some track solids. We're going to be using track solids as references to where stuff is. For example, like this wall. I want to make one for this wall. We want to make one for this wall, for this kind of roof part. But first of all, we're going to set the ground plane and origin. So that'll be somewhere around here. So let's just kind of click and drag. And you can grab a bunch of those track points, right click and set ground plane and origin. So now this wall here, we're going to just grab all the track points along this wall. And we don't want the target to be in a weird kind of direction like it was there. So just make it so that the target, by target, this big red thing, you can change the size of it as well. Just make sure the target is orientated correctly. Then we're going to right click and create solid and camera. So now we have a solid for this wall. We can hit S on your keyboard and scale that down. We also want to rotate it as well, just so it's kind of better aligned to the wall. We'll scale it up as well. Let's turn off the constrained proportions so we can actually scale this along this axis. So we can kind of get the whole thickness of that wall as well. So I just spent a bit of time fiddling with that, just trying to get it nice and aligned as best I can to that wall. We want to push that up as well. So something like that will be fine. Now select our video layer again and grab our 3D camera tracker effect. And again, we're just going to select a bunch of these track points along this wall. So we don't have many there. Let's go back to here where we have a lot more. So let's grab a bunch of these. That looks pretty well aligned. Right click, go to create solid. Again, we're going to scale this down. And it's going to be a good idea as well to name these. So if I hit enter on this, we can call this left wall. This one then will be right wall. And again, I'm just going to mess around with this until it's better aligned with the wall. So something like that looks pretty good. And again, we just need to push this up so it's right against that ceiling or that roof. So we want also to grab a track solid for up here. So let's select our video layer and our camera tracker effect. And let's just grab a bunch of these guys. Again, we want to just kind of select one that has a better orientation relative to the wall. So something like that would be fine. Let's create a solid there. And this one, we can scale it down. If we turn this off, constrained proportions, we can scale it here. Something like that would be good. And kind of rotate it so it's more facing the camera as the building is. And push it up a bit. So something like that. So you can see this one's kind of sticking out a bit too much. So let's kind of pull that back. Even though I think it was okay. Yeah, we'll put it back a bit. We might scale it actually a little bit more. Okay, something like that. Okay. So let's also get a solid on the floor. I don't know if we'll actually need one, but we'll get one anyway. It's better to have more of these than you actually need because you can just turn them off in Cinema once you're in there. So let's grab some here and right click, create solid. This is going to be the floor, I suppose you could call it. And we will scale this down. And we want to kind of push it in a bit as well, just so it's kind of underneath the wall ones. Something like that. You can rotate that as well. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. Let's see if there's any more we want to get while we're here. So we could grab just all of these. And if we create a solid here, we can call this far left wall. And let's scale this down. So this one we'd just be using for hiding any stray balls. I'm going to scale this up, turn off the constrained proportions again, scale that up. So that will hide any stray balls that we might get as well. Once we're setting up our emitter with the spheres. And we can do the same here as well on the other side. Grab a bunch of these. Right click and create solid. This will be far right wall. Far right. And we can scale this down. Push it out of the way. Rotate it so it's better aligned. And we can get it right up against this wall here. Something like that. Cool. And we'll scale that up as well. Turned off the constrained proportion and scale that all the way up. Might need to rotate it as well a bit. So that there's no gap there. Okay, so that's all our track solid set up. And now we can just export this out to a Cinema 4D file. So let's do a file, save as. Let's save this out as well to a folder. So product add main. This is our main After Effects file. Let's export this out to Cinema 4D. So file, export, Maxon Cinema 4D exporter. Just click OK on that. Just give it a second as well if it's not loading up straight away. It can take a bit of time sometimes. And this is product add. Okay. So now we can jump into Cinema. And we can get this set up. So if we go to File, Open, and I have it here. This is our Cinema 4D file that we just exported. Let's open that up. And now you can see that we have our Cinema 4D file with our After Effects camera that we tracked in After Effects, all good to go. And I just want to check the dope sheet, because sometimes After Effects gives some, some weird results with the camera animation. So if we just hit Tab, actually everything looks pretty good. Just sometimes, I don't know, you might have heard me say this before, but sometimes After Effects will give some strange results when you're exporting tracked After Effects cameras into Cinema 4D, but everything looks good here. So nothing to worry about in that case. So we do need to get, because we're using the After Effects camera, right? So this is not set up for Redshift. We go to our render settings, put this onto Redshift. Now we need a Redshift camera. Now let's just, before we do this, just go back to frame 0. So we want a Redshift camera instead of this camera. So let's create one. But we want this camera to do everything this camera is doing. So what we can do is just make it a child of it. It'll copy everything it's doing. Now we can look through the Redshift camera. Let me just get rid of this and zoom out. So now if we hit play, and if we switch between these two cameras, we're getting the exact same results. The only difference is now with our Redshift camera, we'll be able to use a Redshift camera, I suppose. So you can see I do have a bit of, I do have some gaps, but again, we can edit all of these track solids inside of Cinema 4D, so we've nothing to worry about there. So what we do want to do is, we'll do a file save. We want to say yes to that. We want to see our background in our Redshift camera. And to do that, we're going to need an image sequence. So we want to see the video, basically. We want to see this video. So we need to export this out as an image sequence. Before we do that, let's grab all of these layers, turn off their visibility, and let's export this video, as an image sequence. So go to Composition, Add to Render Queue, and let's grab the settings here so we can set this format to PNG sequence. Click OK. And we're going to output this too. So you can see I've already done this, but I'll do it again. We're going to output this to a folder. Just set up a folder to put this out to. Movie sequence. I'm going to set this to, and make sure Save in Subfolder is turned off, so it's not just going to put it into another folder. And click Save. And now we can render this out. And that's going to render everything out as an image sequence. Okay, so that's now rendered out as an image sequence. We can jump back into Cinema and we can get this set up here. Go back to frame 0, go to your Redshift camera. I'm just going to drag this out a bit as well, so we have a bit more space. Let's go to the background tab, click on override, and let's find our sequence that we just rendered out. So I have it saved here. Click on any of these and say no. So now this won't be animated yet, the background I mean. So we need to go here to animation and set this to simple. We set the frame rate to 30 frames per second because Cinema you can't set decimal values. So click on detect frames with that set to 30 frames. And now if we hit play, you're going to see that we have this animated now in the background. So what we can do now is we can get our shampoo bottle or whatever it is. So if you go to your content drawer and it's product, and I have it here. So I'll put this in the description below for any of you guys that don't actually have it, so you'll be able to follow along. But if you have it, just grab it from your content browser here. Let's double click and let's deactivate this camera. We can close this down actually and deactivate our Redshift camera. So you can see we have it here. So the ground plane and origin was here. I thought we set it here, but anyway, it looks like it's down here. So it's just a case now of moving this around. So what we can do to save us the trouble is we can align it to this ground floor. So this would be the floor. Let's drag it down to the floor, make it a child of it, hit Alt-0, and that'll automatically snap it to this floor track solid that we set up earlier. So now we can scale this up. We'll actually move it up a bit first, and we can scale this up. And we can go to our coordinates tab and just zero out the rotational values. And if we have a look through our camera now, so this is going to be the shampoo bottle or the lotion bottle when it kind of appears for the first time. So what we want to do is we want to get it into a position that we like first of all. So we'll do that now. Just going to kind of rotate this, push it back maybe that way. Do you know what we could do to make our lives easier as well? Currently, the axis handle is at the bottom. So what we can do is we could put this into a null, hit Alt-G. So that'll group it. We can call this Lotion Bottle. And if we go then and if we grab our move tool, we want to move our axis handle up. We can hit L on our keyboard, which basically turns this option on, enable axis. We can just push this up to the center of our bottle. So now we're going to be able to control the rotation of this from a central pivot point. Now turn this off or just hit L again in your keyboard. So now if we rotate this, we're rotating it around the center as opposed to from the bottom. So it's a bit easier for us to work with. So I'm going to go something like that for the first kind of pose, we could call it. If I jump into my top view, hit S on your keyboard so that we can actually find where it is. So yeah, something like that will look pretty good. And I want to rotate the nozzle as well. So let's find the nozzle, and I'm going to rotate this just so it's kind of sticking out a bit more. It looks a bit better. Again, personal preference here now. So if we do a file save, let's go to our Redshift view. And I'm going to grab a dome light. And I want to go to my content browser again. Let's search for a HDRI. So let's see, maybe this one. Again, you can kind of try out different ones, but let's try this one. Select your RS dome light, go to the object tab, and then click and drag this down once you have it downloaded. If you guys, again, don't have access to HDRIs or the content browser, just go to HDRI Haven. You get a bunch of free HDRIs there. And now we can get rid of this and let's hit play to see what this is looking like. Okay, so we don't want to see all of these track solids, right? So let's just grab all of these, right click, go to render tags and grab a Redshift object tag, go to the matte and click on override. So this is going to turn off the visibility, but it's also going to keep our shadows on the walls. So if we go to matte, turn that on to enabled, and shadows, we want them to be enabled. So we're getting our shadows, and turn on effects alpha as well. We're getting a weird shadow up here. If we go to visibility and click on override, we don't want self shadows, and we also don't want this to cast shadows. So now we're getting rid of that, but we're losing the shadow here. So let's turn cast shadows back on. Oh no, actually, that's actually perfect. We don't want this to cast shadows, so leave that turned off. Cool. So now if we stick anything behind these walls, you're not going to be able to see them. So when it comes to, if we move let's grab this. If we move our shampoo bottle or our lotion bottle over here, it's going to disappear. So that's handy to have. And we're also going to be able to get shadows on our wall as well. So let's play around with this dome light. Go to your coordinates tab and kind of rotate this around. You can see the shadow is moving around there. So I want the shadow to be cast on this wall here. Just because the shadows, if you look, see this shadow down here, you can see the shadows are being cast in that direction. So we can play around with this until we're getting something that we like. So I don't even know if I'm a fan, to be honest, of this particular dome light. So I'm gonna grab another one. I'm gonna stop rendering, do a file save, go to my content browser, and I'm gonna have a look for a different HDRI. So let's see. Yeah, I think I'm liking that one already a bit more. It's kind of a bit nicer looking. Don't really know why, but yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, I think I'm liking that one a bit more. If we turn this off, turn it on. Yeah, I think that's kind of cool. And it'd be nice to get some backlighting as well. So if we grab an area light, let us hop into our top view over here. Let's find where this is. So it's over here to our ground plane and origin that we set up in After Effects, even though I didn't actually want it there. But anyway, let's rotate this around 180 degrees. Hold down Shift for incremental rotations. And we can move this around with our Move tool. Let's make sure that it's on the right height as well. Pull this back. And let's kind of turn off our dome light to just see what this is doing for us. So that's kind of not doing much at the moment. Let's bring up the scale along the height of it and maybe widen it as well. So I'm trying to get some kind of a specular highlight at the back, kind of like that. We could bring up the intensity a bit. Yeah, something like that's looking a bit better already. Don't need that much. Let's bring back our dome light. So yeah, I think I'm liking that already. And I want to push this back. I think it's back far enough. Push it back a little bit more. So we have a bit more space at the back there. Okay, so let's just zoom in on this a bit. We go to original size and see how this is looking. So we're getting some green reflections there. And the reason for that is because, you know, our track solids have these weird green materials. So we can delete all of those and that won't be a problem anymore. These walls are white, so we could grab a kind of a white material. Let's just double click and call this walls and make this white-ish. And then we can apply this to all of our track solids as well. So that's already looking much better. So let's do a file save. And now we can start animating this lotion bottle. So we're going to go back to standard view. And we're saying that this is our kind of initial pose that we want our bottle to appear and rest in. So we can set a keyframe there. If we go to our lotion bottle group that we set up, or our null, and we can actually just select it. And down in your dope sheet, if you're not seeing your dope sheet, you'll be able to click on this little icon here. It'll pop up. We're just going to add a keyframe here for all values there. So that's keyframe for all values. Let's go back to about here, in between, kind of the middle point between here and frame 0. Let's hop into a different view and we're going to pull this back. But now if we're pulling it back like that, it's going to be weird. We want to pull it straight back. So you can hit W on your keyboard or you can select this coordinate system button. I'm going to use the shortcut W. Now we're going to be able to pull this straight back. Pull that back to about here. Something like this. And we're going to add another keyframe. Then we're going to go back all the way to the very first frame. And we're going to bring it up to around here. And then we're going to add another keyframe. So you can see that's automatically going to kind of curve, so it's not going to be too, like angled, we'll say. So if we hop into our camera now and just play this, we can see what it's looking like. So that comes in. I want to make sure as well that it's not touching the wall, because it looked a bit close to it. So let's find a better view. So yeah, it looks like it's coming very close to that wall. Let's just see. It doesn't actually touch it, but it is a bit close. So what we could do is we could kind of push the whole thing over. Or no, what we do is we go to this keyframe, we can pull it over, and then we can add a keyframe. Whoops. So now it'll come in and it won't be as close to that wall. Something like that. Okay, so it comes in a bit slow. So I'm going to select these keyframes and then I'm going to be able to kind of pull this back so it's going to come in a little bit faster. Something like that. And also, it's a bit boring at the moment. It'd be nice to get some kind of rotation on this. So if we go back to the very first frame, hop into our front view, we can kind of mess around with the rotation coordinates on this. If I just randomly kind of turn that way, turn this way. I don't know if you want it coming in upside down. This is kind of your own personal preference. But if we just do something random like that, set those keyframes on frame 0 back into our main camera view. So you can see it kind of comes in with a kind of a rotation. And the rotation is stopping here. So I'd like it to still be rotating after this keyframe. So what we can do is we can go to all of our values here and we can just say, well, which rotation do we want to still be rotating at this point? Let's just try B, just randomly. If we kind of pull that forwards. So now you can see it's still kind of rotating in. I might even want that right up to the very end. Something like that is kind of cool, I think. So it kind of comes in. I might even want all of my rotation keyframes happening right up to the very last frame. Let's try this one and see what that looks like. That's kind of cool. Let's try the last one as well. We'll see if that looks good. So this is kind of just me trial and error, kind of seeing, does it look good or not? And then just kind of, so I think that looks good actually. Like all of those rotation keyframes going right from frame 0 right up to the very end until it comes to its rest, as opposed to having the rotation all ending here. I think it kind of looks better. I'm not entirely sure about the way it comes in at the very start, but you guys can mess around with it yourselves and see what you'd prefer. So let's do a file save and let's go back and watch this one more time. Okay, cool. So I suppose we can move on to our emitter now and getting these spheres emitted. But what I want to do before I do any of that is I want to set up some colliders. Now we could use these track solids as colliders, but I found that they don't do the best job at, colliding or acting as colliders. So basically we want decent colliders for our spheres to bounce off of so that they're not going to get stuck in the walls and stuff like that. So if we grab a cube, this can be collider 1. And we want to align it to this wall. This can be our first collider, we'll say. Let's make it a child of the left wall. Hit Alt-0 to reset the transform. And let's bring it back out. We'll just bring it to the bottom, actually. And let's give it a material as well, just so we can see it a bit better. We'll just call this collider, and we'll make this white. So let's apply that to collider now, just so we can see it again. And we want to go into a better view here, top view, so we can make this the same size as our wall. And we can hit W on our keyboard, so we're going to be able to push that back in the correct direction. Let's go to a different view here. Hit S if you can't find it. Let's try perspective. So we're pushing that right back there. So you can see it's just going to kind of be out a bit from the wall. And now we can scale that up to be the same size as the wall as well. So that's going to be our first collider. So we want to right click on this, go to simulation tags and make a collider of it. Now, if we hit NB on our keyboard, you'll see this has no segments, and that's not good for colliders. They need to have segments for them to work properly, or at least the more segments they have, the better for them to work. So let's go to the collider, go to the object tab, and let's just bring up these segments. So I'm just eyeballing this really. Get a bit more on that. And I'm not sure if we need any here, but I'm going to do some anyway. On this axis, I meant to say. And if we go to collision side, we can leave that on front. So now we can basically just duplicate this collider and hold down control, click and drag, and we're bringing this to the right wall. So hit Alt 0 on that. And that's going to align itself again to this right wall. We can pull it back so that it's just going to stick out. I'm going to turn off my lines, NA on your keyboard, so we can see what we're doing. So this is just going to stick out a little bit again from our right wall. We're going to need a collider for up here, or kind of a ceiling. So I'm going to create a new, actually I'll duplicate this again. Let's get this collider, we'll call this collider 2. We'll duplicate this again, and we're going to align it to this ceiling. What do we call it? What did we call this one? We didn't give it a name, so we'll call this roof. So we're going to hold down control, click and drag, make it a child of the roof, not the floor, and then hit Alt 0. So that'll align itself up there as well. If we go into our top view now, we can just kind of pull this back so that it's lining up with the front of our roof. Something like that. We can even make it a bit bigger. Pull that right back. And we want to push this a little bit further down as well than our roof bottom, we'll say. Okay, so that's all of our colliders set up. So what we can do is do a file save, and we can go ahead now and grab our emitter. So emitter is in Simulate, and we're going to go for the legacy emitter, the good old-fashioned emitter. None of the fancy stuff. We just need a regular old emitter. So let's find it first. It's going to be over here to our ground plane origin. Bring it over here. We might align it. We don't really need to align it to anything. We'll just kind of eyeball this. So if we hit play now, so you can see our emission is going in the wrong direction. Let's rotate that so it's going in the right direction. So that's going to be going that way. So our spheres are going to be flying out that way. We need to bring it up along the Y. And yeah, something like that. Okay, so for the start emission, we don't want the spheres to be emitting from frame 0. We kind of want it around frame 198, just when the lotion bottle comes to its resting position. So let's go to the particle tab in our emitter, and start emission we can set to 198. Then for the stop emission, we could go for something like, for now, 400. And we'll see how we get on. If we have a look at this now, so we can see our lotion bottle is going to come in and the emission is going to start then as well. Now we don't want to see the emitter kind of behind the bottle because otherwise we're going to see spheres. Well, let me show you what I mean actually. So let's actually get our emitters. We're going to be emitting spheres. So we grab a sphere and we'll make it a child of the emitter. If we go to our emitter, we can go to show objects under the particle tab. So now you can see we're getting these giant spheres. We need to scale those down and we need to give them a material as well. So we'll grab a sphere, or I'll just call this ball 1. And I'm going to make this kind of a pinkish color to match up with our lotion bottle, something like that. We can play around with this later. Let's apply that to the sphere just so we can see what we're getting. And we want these as well to be bouncing off our colliders, or at least hitting off them. So let's right click, go to simulation tags and rigid body. Now if we hit play, our spheres are going to start crashing to the ground. But what I meant with regards to the emitter being visible, we don't want to see the balls suddenly appearing. So we want our emitter to be hidden by our lotion bottle. But first of all, let's turn off gravity. We don't want these spheres to start falling to the ground. So hit Control D on your keyboard, go to the simulation tab, and let's go to scene and set gravity to 0. While we're here as well, we may as well turn the sub steps up to like 40 and add a few more collision passes, like 6. That should give us better collisions and simulation results as well. Now let's try and hide the emitter from view. So we can kind of bring it down, bring it over a bit. And maybe if we hit T, we can scale it. We don't want to scale the entire thing though. We just want to kind of scale it to make it a bit skinnier. So we'll have to do that in the emitter. Go to the emitter tab and let's bring down the X size. We could even rotate this as well. If we just grab our rotate tool, we can kind of rotate that so it's well and truly hidden by our lotion bottle. Might even scale that down just a tiny little bit more. Something like that. So now if we play this, we'll see, let's go back actually and file, save. So what I'm going to do is hit play and I'm going to kind of skip forward so we don't have to wait for that bottle to come in each time. So it looks like our balls are suddenly appearing as I'm skipping forward, so we might have to just watch it. You might get weird results if you try and skip ahead when you have a simulation going. So those are kicking in a bit too soon. I do think that we set this already. So the start emission is 150. I thought we set that to 194. Let's set it again and let's have a look. So I'm going to skip ahead. And now our spheres are coming out, but they don't have any speed. So let's give them some speed. Go to your emitter tab. Let's crank up the speed of these to something pretty high. We can mess around with the variation as well. Let's have a look at this. So they're appearing, but they're still not going fast enough. Let's go for something dramatic, 2000. Let's have a look at this now again. Okay, I don't think it's liking me skipping ahead frames, so we're gonna have to watch this each time. Hopefully you have a nice animation set up, so that won't be a problem. Okay, so we're getting our spheres now, they're emitting out. But now they're going a bit too fast. So I wonder if I just put this back to what it was and not skip ahead, will we actually see the result that we're looking for here? Yeah, okay. So that's working. I might rotate the emitter so that it's kind of pointing upwards a bit. Something like that. Let's have a look at that now. I might rotate it a bit more this way as well, so it's more facing the camera. Again, I think these are going a bit too fast. I was just kind of getting confused as to why it wasn't working. Yeah, I think that's kind of cool. Maybe point it down. I'm trying to get these kind of spheres coming more directly towards the camera, if that makes sense. There we go. They're still kind of floating up a bit. Let's go to our gravity, Control D, go to scene, and let's just kind of add a bit of gravity. We'll try like minus 100 and see if that is going to stop them from flying up. Now, it's probably because I'm pointing the emitter upwards. Yeah, I think that's a bit better. Okay, we'll leave it like that for now, and we'll see how we get on. So currently the spheres are traveling through the bottle. We don't want them to do that. So let's see if we can just apply a collider tag to each of these. Right click, go to simulation tags and add a collider on those. So let's see now if this is going to start colliding off our bottle. It should do. These spheres should start coming out. They're going to hit off our bottle. They're kind of getting stuck onto it. So what I'm going to do, instead of adding a bunch of collider tags onto our bottle, is I'm going to create a cylinder. So let's do a file save. I'm going to grab a cylinder. Where are you? A cylinder. And I'm going to make it a child of the bottle. Hit Alt-0. So now let's see this come in. And I'm going to scale this. Whoops. I'm going to scale this up. Let's get a better view on this as well. Scale this up. Kind of move it up as well, and then bring up the height. And I want to make it even closer to the shape of our actual bottle. So if we go to the object mode here and go to our scale tab, we're going to be able to scale this exactly along the axis that we want it to. And we can do something like that. Let's push this. Let's reduce the height on this just to make sure it's exactly the same height or thereabouts as our actual bottle. So now if we turn off the visibility of this and we add a collider tag onto it, now hopefully we'll be getting better results for our collisions now on our spheres. Yeah, so that's a lot better. We're not getting any spheres kind of sticking to the bottle, so that's much better. I think there's too much gravity. I'm going to go Control D, gravity. I'm going to go for minus 50 on that. And also I'd like our spheres to kind of grow in size the closer they get to the camera. So if we go to our emitter, go to the particle settings here, and for the end scale, let's bring that up a little bit and a little bit of variation as well. Let's have a look at that. So I might want them to grow. Actually, they're growing kind of, I might grow them a little bit more than that. End scale, bring it up to like 15 or 13. Bit more variation. And the speed is too much. I'm going to cut that in half. And let's have a look at this. Keep saving. Keep saving. Okay. So right now there's a bit too many spheres. So we want that emission to actually stop at around maybe frame 330. Go to the emitter again and stop emission at that frame. And I might even bring down the speed a little bit more, down to 250. Let's see what that looks like. So I think I'm liking that a bit more. Cool. So at this point now is kind of where we want the lotion bottle to kind of zoom towards the camera. So let's grab our bottle, lotion bottle null, and we can add a keyframe here. And if we go forward a number of frames, let's say to about here, we can go into our side view and we want to, we'll actually look at all views here so we can see what we're doing. We want this bottle to kind of fly then towards the camera. So maybe the top view would be the best way to do this. We have a line to follow. So again, we're going to have to hit W on a keyboard so we can, well, actually that didn't help at all. So we're going to be just kind of eyeballing this, and we're going to be bringing this bottle closer to the camera, but we're going to be pushing it down. Let's keep it center frame. So it's going to fly kind of downwards at the start. Let's hit a keyframe. Make sure it is centered-ish. Grab a keyframe or a bunch of keyframes. So now that's going to fly towards the camera. And then it's going to slowly, we're going to give it a bit of time before it kind of comes up and even closer to the camera. Something like there. So we're going to push it again now, right close to the camera. We're going to bring it up. And it's going to rest around there, kind of very close to the camera, we'll say. Center shot. And let's grab a keyframe. So now let's do a file save and let's watch all this as we have it at the moment. So our bottle's going to start coming towards the camera. And there we have it coming up now. Cool. Let's go into our Redshift view here real quick. And let's just set this to fit window. We can make this bigger. And let's see what this is looking like. If we hit play. So it's a bit dark, and I'll put that down to the dome light again. So I'm going to have to change it again just because I'm still not happy with the dome light. So let's go to our content browser and let's have a look at this. So I just had a look through some extra dome lights there. I don't know if it is the dome light, to be honest. It could be just because I do like the, you know, if we go back here, I do like the first part where, you know, it comes in here. I think it's nice. I like the specular highlights we're getting there. And when it comes to its initial resting position, I do like that. So there's no point in changing the dome light just to kind of fix it there. Let's see. If we turn off these colliders for a second. Yeah, so we don't want them to be casting shadows, obviously, because it's making it very dark. Let's grab both of these colliders, and where's the other collider? This one as well. We'll grab all of these, right click, go to render tags, Redshift object, go to visibility, And we don't need to do any of that. We can just make them invisible to the render by clicking these traffic lights here. But so what we can do to solve our issue of it being very dark when it gets right up to the camera, if we just let this play through now, is we can just basically add in an extra area light, and that will solve all of our woes for us. So let's just get this, wait for this to come right up to the camera. That all happens a bit too slow, actually, as I'm looking at it. So I'm going to grab these keyframes, make them happen a bit faster. So it's going to fly in a lot faster. And also, we can now just fix the lighting trouble we're having. So we'll grab an area light. And let's position this so that we get some nice lighting on the front. Now let's make sure we're looking through our Redshift camera, and let's get this area light into position. Bring it up along the Y and bring it right into our shampoo bottle. What we can actually do is, if we just go here and click on this little drop down, we can add target and null, and we can make the null, where is it? We can make the null a child of the bottle, and then hit Alt 0, so that now if we move our light around, it's always going to be pointing at our bottle. We can scale this right up, and we can start playing around with its position, something like that for now, which is looking pretty good. Okay, so the animation at the moment, it's a little bit plain, we'll say. So we want to do something similar with this from here to here that we did at the start. So it kind of does a little flip around as well. So we're gonna have it kind of start flipping here. So what we can do is we can go to our lotion bottle null and kind of get it starting to flip. So we can have it kind of there, add a keyframe, and then you can see it's gonna flip around again. So we need to bring it to this last keyframe that we're on, and then kind of flip it all the way around. Just clicking and dragging here to get it to about there. We'll say something like that. And then we can add another keyframe. So now if we watch that, it's going to come out, and it makes it a bit more interesting with some flips. And then finally, we just want to level it out so that it's facing the camera. So we get that label just facing directly towards the camera. So we'll let it play to about frame, a few frames later. Doesn't have to be exact. And then we're just going to start rotating these values until it's kind of flat towards the camera. Something like that. And again, you can hold down Alt if you want to do some kind of finer tweaks. Hold down Alt when you're clicking and dragging. And then let's add those keyframes. So it kind of goes like that. And then it just levels out. We might make that happen. We might let that take a bit longer to happen. So select those last keyframes and drag those out. Straightens out there, takes a bit longer. And we can even, if we just grab those rotational keyframes, hit tab on our keyboard, and we can find, we had them selected already. We can just kind of select this last one here and hold down Control before you click, then click and drag. Holding down Control keeps that level. If you don't hold down Control, it can go mad. Hold down Control, it'll stay flat. We can just drag that out so that we're getting a nice ease out there. So it's really nice and smooth. Okay, cool. So we'll do a file save and we'll see how we're getting on. So that comes in. Kind of rests there for a little while. Our spheres start coming out. And then it's going to fly towards the camera. And it comes to its rest then as well. We might increase the speed of the spheres. Also, I noticed that the spheres are kind of going down here, so we need a collider down there as well. If we jump to our side view, those spheres are still traveling very slow. They're barely coming out at all. So we could increase the speed of those. If we go to our emitter, particle tab, let's bring that speed up to like that maybe. See how that looks. So these come out. Let's not forget that we still need to put a collider down here as well. They're coming out a bit faster. We want to have a look at this view, I suppose. And I think they're now in front of our object. I don't know, maybe they're not still, but they are coming out a bit faster, so it's a bit better. And then that levels off. So we are getting some intersections here. Let's see. Where's our colliders? So those are intersecting. I suppose we could push this down a bit. Do we have enough segments? We do. Let's hit Control D. Go to our simulation and let's crank the sub-steps up to 60. Let's try some extra iterations as well. We'll go for like 4 extra iterations and we'll try that again, see how we get on. I'm going to jump into my side view and see. So they are coming out quite fast. But they could be coming out a little bit faster. I don't want them to be coming too fast because it won't look great. We're not getting any intersections now. Oh, we are actually still. So I suppose if we just hide our bottle for now, or we don't need to hide it. Let's just go to our default camera. So these are all hanging around here too much. We want to get them out, right? So let's try and grab some wind. So if we go to simulate, forces and wind, let's bring this kind of over to where we can see it. Top view, I just hit S on my keyboard. So it's that's turbulence, excuse me. I might just keep that there because we might use some turbulence later. Go to simulate forces and wind. Let's get this pulled over here so we can see it. Make sure it's pointing in the right direction. It is. And let's crank this up to like 100 for now. And we'll see if that's going to kind of push them out a bit more. So I guess a lot of them are being kind of blocked by our bottle. So let's kind of maybe reduce the scale. Let's bring down the scale so that they come out smaller. Let's have a look at this now. They're already very small. I think we might need to scale down our bottle a bit, perhaps. I don't want to do that though because the bottle is already a good enough size. Let's try and increase the wind speed. See if that helps us out at all. We'll go up to like 500 on that. Let's get out of this view as well so we don't have to keep watching that bottle animation. Just hit play and then skip ahead. Ah, no, we can't do that. The emitter doesn't like us skipping ahead. I forgot about that. So we got some strong wind here now. Wait, that wind is going the wrong way. Okay, wind's going the wrong way. I thought this was telling us which way the wind was blowing, but obviously it's not. Okay, so the wind is going the wrong way. Let's see now how we get on. Skip ahead. I keep skipping ahead. Now we could cache the sim, but we're still not kind of there yet with the sim, so let's see how that's looking. Okay, so that's working, but you know, obviously the wind is too strong now. So let's bring down the wind back to 100. See if that does anything for us. Can't skip ahead, I almost did it again. So that's a bit better, I'd say. They're all kind of being forced by the wind out of the way, so they're not like all getting stuck in there. And I think that might be a bit better. So the bottle then kind of flies towards the camera, gets those other spheres out of its way. It's in the shot and it kind of levels itself off. So I think that's pretty good. So we'll go with that, and we can, let's have a look at a few of these frames now to see how we're getting on. Now, there was a problem that I actually noticed before with the background. So the camera's background, sometimes it just stops animating. And if that happens, you might have to just delete your Redshift camera. Just go back to frame 0, create a new one and do those steps again with regards to adding the background. It hasn't happened to me yet, but if it does happen, just keep that in mind. So they're all flying out. Let's do some renders. Well, I say renders, let's just have a look at some of these frames. See how they're looking. So these colliders can all be hidden from view so that they're not blocking our light. That's pretty nice. And we can continue on. Let's check this out. It's all looking pretty good. We want to get some variation in our spheres as well. So let's create a duplicate of this. Call this ball 2. This can be a kind of a, maybe a darker kind of a pink or red, something like that. And let's just click and drag this to duplicate it and then apply that ball to it. Looks too similar. We'll have to go darker again. Is that changing at all? It isn't, is it? Because we've already emitted those. So let's just undo that. Just go for red. We'll probably see the changes once we re-emit those spheres. And while we're doing this, I'm going to duplicate this again. So we're going to have a different kind of material. This can be ball number 3. I think I just duplicated that twice. Yeah. So just click and drag. And I think that's going to go down here. Ball number 3. And this one's going to be like, you know, like transparent. So we're going to go down to transmission and we'll put this up a good bit, maybe all the way, and apply that there as well. Let's see if that actually renders for us. So it did. Okay, we just weren't looking at that through the render view. This one is not applied. Apply that. So that's a bit too red. So we'll change that to a bit lighter. I don't like the orange. Something like that is kind of nice, I suppose. Yeah, something like that. You can play around the colors yourselves. So cool. Let's do a file save. We'll keep checking this. I'm just going to stop rendering. Let's scrub forward a bit. This comes out. Just going to see how it looks at this stage as well. It's not too bad. And then it kind of gets into position there. Now I am mindful that this area light is basically tracking this because it has the target null as a child of it. So I might stop that from happening. Let's just get it into its final position. It's still very dark. It's still very dark there. So let's mess around with this area light. Go into our top view. Make sure we're just rendering from the Redshift camera perspective. Let's get this area light doing its job. So that's a bit better. I think just having it head on is probably giving us the best result. Let's increase the exposure a bit. Bring up the intensity. No, leave the intensity as it is. Something like that. Okay, so I'm not seeing any stray balls on either side. We do need to do a collider down there actually, so let's do that now. Go back to frame 0. We're going to duplicate this collider and click and drag it to the floor so that we can Alt 0 it. And let's just hop out of our camera there. And let's make this visible. So we want this to we want to actually push this up because we don't want any balls going down, further than that, we'll say. So let's bring this down here now. This will be collider number 3. And let's make this invisible. And also it would be nice to get some depth of field as well. So we'll do that now for the next job. So we have that. We want to get some depth of field rocking. So if we go into our top view, our focus distance is pretty far away from our bottle. We just wanted to track our bottle with regards to the focus distance. So if we go to optical, we can set the object to focus on down here. We're just going to click and drag our bottle down there. So now you can see it's just going to track our bottle. We can bring the aperture down to like 2. And now if we hit play, well, we won't see anything yet, so we won't render that out just yet, but we will do it just quick render to see what we're looking at. It's all looking pretty good. Let's go with this again. Out come our balls. Keeping an eye out for any stray balls that might be kind of creeping up there, but I don't see any. And let's do another render on this. It's looking pretty good. So far, so good. This starts flying out. And there. So now we'll actually be able to see our depth of field. So make sure bokeh is turned on. And if we just kind of refresh that. If we bring this aperture right down to 0.2, you'll see that everything starts blurring out. Now, we don't want our background video to blur. So to fix that, we have to go to, let's see, background and affected by bent rays, turn that off. So now only our geometry is going to be affected. But obviously that's too much depth of field. So go back to optical and we'll set this to like 1.8. Maybe even lower, 1.5. Go lower to 1.2 even. Something like that could be cool. And again, I did say earlier that our light, our area light, so this one here, it's tracking our object. We don't want it to do that. So I'm going to stop it from doing that. Let's get this bottle into its resting position, which is just there. See what that looks like. And then we can basically delete that tracking null. And I'm just going to hop into my top view to make sure it's not going to do anything to the light. So let's delete this. So now that light is just going to stay in its position. You can see there. So we don't have to worry about that light moving around, because that would be noticeable. You'd see the light moving around with all the... It would basically be making the specular highlights jump around on all the spheres and stuff like that. So we don't want that. So one final thing, I think that's the final thing. Let's see. I mean, we could add some bloom to this. So if we go to our settings here, let's make more space so we can actually see. We could add some streak. That could be nice. So if we go to our streak, bring the threshold down and bring the intensity down. Let's just kind of, if we crank that up, we're going to get some nice streaks on our specular, but we don't want too much. Bring up the threshold until you can't see any, and then maybe just bring up the intensity. So we're just getting a little bit. Turn that off and on. Maybe a little bit more. Off and on. Less. Off, on. Something like that could be good. Let's try bloom as well. Bring the threshold down. Bring the intensity up. I'm not digging the bloom, so I'm going to leave that off. So let's see. I think that's pretty much it for the setup. As far as the setup goes, we could animate the nozzle. So like, our bottle comes in. And let's stop this from rendering. So this flies in. It comes in and just kind of comes to a stop here. And the nozzle could do a little kind of an animated twist just as it's coming to a stop, which might look nice. Probably a little subtle thing that nobody would ever notice. We'll go for it anyway. Grab the nozzle, go to coordinates, just make sure we're on the correct one. Add a keyframe there. Let's go forward to about here as it's coming to a rest, and then the nozzle just kind of rotates. So it's like, 90 degrees to the camera, we'll say. Should go into our top view. Just make sure it's like perfectly straight along the side and add a keyframe. So let's have a look at that. Comes in, nozzle turns around, barely noticeable. Nobody will ever notice that, but I think it looks a little bit nicer. And then for a finish, I just want to add some kind of secondary animation to this bottle. So as it's coming in, I want to add some kind of floaty animation to it. So we're going to use a vibrate tag for that. So let's right click on the lotion bottle null, go to animation tags and vibrate. So we want to enable position, and we're going to go 10, 10, 10, just very subtle. Frequency very low, and rotation will go very subtle as well. And again, 0.3 for the frequency on that. So let's have a look and see what that looks like. So you're barely going to notice that animation tag doing anything, but you should see a little bit of floatiness, kind of bobbing up and down. You can kind of see it a bit. I think that makes a nice, just a very subtle difference, but I think it adds to it. And then our bottle is going to fly out. Pushing any spheres that are in the way out of the way. Comes in, nozzle starts rotating around, so it's 90 degrees to the camera. And then that kind of settles into position. Okay, so I think this is ready to render out, guys. Yeah, I think this is ready to render out. I'll just do another couple of test frames. You can never do enough test frames. So just a couple of quick test frames just to make sure we're good. Actually, when it's coming down here, we want to see what that looks like. So obviously, okay, so I think the thing that happens with the camera sometimes is after happening. So you can see there that that's all wrong. So it looks like our camera has stopped animating, and it has, right? So the camera has stopped animating. So I run into this problem from time to time. Kind of happy it happened here so you guys get to see it in action. But all I do to fix that is, well, sometimes you can just actually close the file. Make sure you save first and then open it again. Sometimes that fixes it. Yeah, so I think that's fixed it. No, it hasn't. So it hasn't fixed it. So what you have to do, if that happens, yeah, make sure you're back on frame 0. Check your settings so we can copy them. So we got aperture set to 1.2, and we're tracking the bottle for the focus distance. So we're gonna have to delete the Redshift camera, making sure you're on frame 0, and the 3D tracker camera is selected. I'm gonna create another Redshift camera. Again, make it a child of that camera, activate it. Then we're going to go to our background tab and do all that stuff again. So we are, yeah, say no on that. And we are going to set up our object to track is the bottle. And the bokeh is turned on, and we had this at 1.2. So now we'll be able to do our test frames. That is working again. So you can see our bottles coming down, but this track solid needs to be pushed down because it needs to cut that bottle a bit more. So if we push that down to like there, even down a bit more. Go on. There you go. Down a bit more. Finding that sweet spot. Perfect. Do a file save. See what we're getting with, how it's looking. It comes in. Starts resting. Let's do another test render here and see what that's looking like. That's all good. So then we're going to go again. The spheres start coming out. Just going to make sure that these spheres are all looking good. Nothing weird happening here with the spheres. That's fine. And then we're going to wait for it to start flying towards the camera. It is animating now. That vibrate tag is doing its thing quite well, I think. So then that flies towards the camera, does a little spin, and there we have it. So we can do another test render here. Okay, so I think this is ready to render out, so let's do a file save. So you can see the same things happened with our camera again. I don't know why this happens, and it seems to happen quite often towards like when you have a lot of stuff going on in the scene. But you are gonna, if that does, hopefully it's not happening for you guys. But if it is, you just have to do that whole thing with the camera, which I'm going to just do really quickly here again. So we'll do another couple of test renders. Let's just scrub again a bit more. That comes out. So I think that's all looking pretty good, guys. So I think we can just go ahead and render this out. Okay, so let's do a file save. And we're going to stop rendering from here. Let's go to our render settings and output all frames. You could just cut it down. I'm going to go all frames. You could just cut down to like 550 frames because we're kind of going to cut the video around here. Anyhow, I'm going to go for all of them. We're going to just double check something. So yeah, that's fine. So we're going to turn on our motion blur. So we get some nice motion blur. Output that 1920 by 1080, all frames. Let's save this as a PNG sequence. We're not using multipass. Let's pick a place to save this out. Just going to create a new folder. And we don't need alpha channel because we're rendering this out with the video in the background so that we're able to see the background through our spheres. Go to Redshift, go to Advanced and Global Illumination. We can reduce render times a good bit by just setting both of these to brute force. And that is pretty much it. Cool. So let's do a file save. And one last thing before we actually render this out. And you have to do this because it always happens to me. My camera just breaks. Again, look, the animation of the camera is not working. If any of you guys have experienced this, I mean, it's kind of annoying that I keep having to do that. But you just have to, I have to do it this one last time before I actually hit render. Otherwise, it's going to be all messed up as we're rendering with the video in the background. So I'm going to make sure this camera is selected. I'm on frame 0. Delete this camera again. Make a new Redshift camera. Make it a child of the camera. Make it active. Go to background override. Grab our movie sequence. Say no. Go to animation. Set it to simple. Detect frames and all that stuff. Go to optical. Turn bokeh back on. Set it down to 1.2. And the tracking, the focus object to track is the bottle. Okay, so that's it, guys. So now if we render this out to picture viewer, it should be good to go. So I'm going to watch the first couple of frames render just to make sure it's okay. But once it's done, we'll pop back in and see the finished results. Okay, guys, so that render is finished, fully rendered out. So let's hop into After Effects now. And let's have a look at it. Just double click. Let me get rid of this. Let's double click in this panel here. And we can find our sequences folder. I've rendered it out to this folder. So let's bring this in and drag it down to this little composition icon. That'll create a new comp for us. So this is our render. So what we can do now is, I suppose I'll load a bit of this into cache. And we can see what it's looking like. So I'm going to increase the brightness of this straight away. Let's get a few spheres in here so we can kind of see what we're doing with the spheres as well. So let's grab a Lumetri color effect. Make sure your sequence layer is selected, and then just double click. Automatically applies to it then. Go to basic correction. Let's bring up the exposure a bit and maybe a little bit of contrast as well. Okay, so that's already looking really a lot better, much brighter anyway. So this is the point that we want our little end title to come in. Our little kind of, Red Lily, always fresh, or fresh every day, or whatever I said in that at the start. Red Lily, fresh all day, I think it was. So we want that to come in around here, just as the bottle is settling into its final resting position, which is right I'm going to use Control and the right arrow key to just kind of flick between frames, just so we can find that exact point. So it's like right there, I'd say. Kind of there. Just where it stops moving, we'll say. It's still going to have that secondary animation from the vibrate tag, but when it kind of just stops rotating from the rotation keyframes that we applied to it, that's where we want to get that frame out. So that is, for me, around 529, frame 529. So let me make a note of that. 529. And let's save this frame out. So go to composition, save frame as file, and let's set this to be a PNG and pick a place for this as well. So I'm going to save this out to the main folder, just call it frame. And let's render that out. So now we want to isolate just the lotion bottle, and a really quick way we can do that is to bring it into Photoshop. So open up Photoshop, let's find the frame that we just exported from After Effects, and let's just drag that in. So hopefully if we just you might see this quick selection tool, or it might be here. If we hold down or click on this and try our object selection tool. Okay, it's not working. I was hoping it would just automatically pick the front or the lotion bottle by itself. But that's not going to work, so we're going to have to try quick selection tool, and we can go for cloud detailed and then select subject. So let's see if that does a better job. No, it's going to select all of our spheres. So it's just a case of getting rid of this. So I'm just using I'm holding down Alt on my keyboard, and I'm getting rid of all of these guys. Whoops, we don't want to get rid of too many. That's fine, get rid of these. And also I need to add on this part as well. This part got left out somehow. This nozzle part sticking out. So once you've kind of gone around and kind of tidied up the selection a bit, just using just your selection tool, what you can do then is, hang on, let me get rid of this little sticky outy part. What you can do is go to select and mask. So we need to tidy this up a bit. So what we can do is use our smart radius and bring that up a bit. Let's bring up the contrast and let's smoothen this out a bit. We can maybe try a bit of feathering, just a little bit more contrast maybe, and a bit more of the edge detection radius option as well. Don't want to go too far with this because otherwise it would start losing our detail. So something like this could be good. We do have something sticking out there. Let's say if we kind of brush that, we can get rid of it just with this tool selected. And once that's kind of all selected, let's maybe shift the edge back a little bit. Actually, I'm going to leave that at 0. Once that's all kind of tidied up, a bit more smoothing maybe. Once that's all tidied up, then what you can do is go to Output, New Layer. Click OK. So now we have this as its own separate image with a transparent background. So let's export this now as a PNG. So I'm going to just call this frame cutout and save that. Wait, this does not exist. Hang on, let's try that again. Oh, right, okay. Frame cutout. And now we can jump into After Effects and we can bring in that frame. So, frame cutout. Let's go back into our sequence 1. Drag this down and just put it on top. So we want to trim this, right? So let's just say if we turn this layer off, we don't want to see this before 17 seconds, 17.19 seconds in. So select that layer, hold down Alt and use your left square bracket, holding down Alt, and that will trim that for you. And this is the point where we want this to kind of fade in, or for this sequence to fade out, we'll say. So let's select our sequence, hit Shift, Alt, and T to do a keyframe for transparency or opacity. Go forward some frames, and we're going to set this then to 0. So that's just going to fade out. We're just going to be left with that layer that we've cut out. And we will want to have a white background. So go to Layer, New, and Solid. We're going to grab a white background, click OK. Let's put that kind of at the back. You can just drag it down. And we don't want that visible until here. So that's going to come in. We're just going to be left with our white background and our bottle. And we do want our bottle, it's kind of slightly rotated. So in cinema, maybe I didn't set the final resting position rotation exactly kind of so the bottle's standing perfectly straight up. So we can just fix that in After Effects. If we select the frame cutout layer and just hit Shift, Alt, and R, it should add, it's not adding a rotation keyframe. So just select the layer, hit R, and just do it manually. And then go forward to here where it's all white, and we can just say like 0.6 to kind of straighten that out, maybe 0.8, maybe even 0.9. So something like that. So that kind of rotates into a better kind of a position, we'll say. And then what we can do is, so you can see the edges are a little bit rough. We probably could have done a better job in Photoshop of tidying up those edges, but just for the purpose of this tutorial, we kind of rushed that a bit. But let's grab some titles now. So do a file save. So let's grab our titles now. Let's go to our text tool and just click anywhere. We're going to have the text Red Lily, all caps. And the position of this, we can kind of maybe bring up the scale and kind of increase the, what is that, line spacing? The leading or the leading? I don't know what that's called. Leading, maybe leading. Leading sounds better. So let's position this, and we're going to duplicate this. This is going to be our other text, and it's going to be smaller. And this is going to be fresh all day, or whatever we said, fresh. And let's just get rid of the lily part. Fresh. And we'll duplicate this as well and bring this down. So this is going to be all day. Something like that. So let's scale that down so that it's kind of the same width as the fresh part. And now we have our Red Lily fresh all day kind of title screen that's going to come up at the end. And again, we can trim these text layers using, we might actually trim them a bit later. So they could like come in here. That could be cool. So we'll trim them around here with them both selected, Alt and your left square bracket. That'll trim them. And we can then add some transparency keyframes. So Shift Alt T for your opacity keyframes. Set these to 0 and set this one to 0 as well. They're both set to 0. We forgot about this one. Let's trim it, add a transparency keyframe, set it to 0. Now let's grab everything and let's go forward a few frames where we want these to be fully opaque. And then they come in and it goes to white. And that's our kind of a little title screen. So cool. So that's kind of it, I suppose. Now there is something you guys might have avoided. Now I didn't. You can see I have some clipping here. So my geometry is basically intersecting. So what you can do to fix that, if I just do a file, save. If I do a file save, I can fix this now with the original video layer. I'll just bring this down just above my rendered sequence. You can see the colors are a bit different. So what we can do is we can kind of copy our Lumetri effect from this frame to this. It's still going to be different. I might just leave it off actually. But it won't matter for fixing this anyway. So for our building video, our original video, it's hiding now everything that we've rendered. So we want a mask. We want to mask this just so we're getting a little bit of the original video to hide our mistake, or my mistake, blaming you guys, my mistake that I did at the start. So with your pen tool selected, we're just going to kind of draw a mask kind of just where the lotion bottle kind of shouldn't be visible. And I'm going to use the lines on the wall here so that like it kind of blends a bit better. So you can see now, if I just push that up a bit, you can see now that that's kind of masking out the part, masking my mistake. So that's what that is doing. So if we just kind of unravel this, go to masks, and if we just kind of animate the mask opacity, so we want it to be 100% here. You can still kind of see that. So I do need to select the mask path and bring it up. Whoops, mask pass, selection tool. Let's lasso select that one and just bring that up. And this one as well. Just so we don't see any of those nasty oversights. So then the mask opacity can kind of like start fading out here because we don't really need it, and we can set it to 0 then. So that's gonna be very hard to notice, but a quick little fix there for that. So we'll do a Control S to save. So for the very, very final finishing touch, we're going to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and we're going to bring this up to the top. You can use Control, Shift, and your right square bracket, or you can just drag it up. Let's add a Lumetri color to it. Make sure it's selected and double click, or you can just click and drag it over. I'm going to add a vignette to this. So let's just kind of bring the amount value down to something like that, 2.5. And also that's going to vignette everything else that's underneath it, so we get this nice vignette at the end screen as well. So I think that looks a lot better as well. And we will have a look at this. Okay guys, that's it. We made it. For all you hard hitters, heavy rockers that made it to the very end of this tutorial, I do hope you learned a lot. and make sure to let me know in the comments below if you did, and you might consider subscribing if you haven't yet done so. Thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.